I was lucky enough to be under Mick's guidance when the EPAs in community child health were developed. I led the child protection group, but the three groups, the three streams, contributed very much to each other in the development of the EPAs. I'm also the chair of the Advanced Training Committee in Community Child Health, which is a challenging job, and I think it's going to become more challenging and then a bit easier once we move over to competency-based training. And I'm lucky enough to be on the curriculum advisory group as well, which has been a very interesting experience so far. We've only met a couple of times, but there's a lot of interest in that group in what we're doing today. It'll be interesting to see when we get this all summarised and together how much it adds to the discussions in the curriculum advisory group. Remember, that's across the whole of the college, and it will be giving some guidance around the 40-odd curricula that need to be reviewed within the college structure. So what I'm wanting you to do until about 10 to 4, there's 3 questions I want to put to you. I want you to be thinking about yourselves as fellows or trainees of the college rather than as paediatricians, if you can do that, so that you can get yourself outside of the Division of Child Health into the actual college structure and look at the questions from that perspective. The first question, what are your initial thoughts on renewing the curricula? Okay, initial thoughts. Even I think possibly from people who were involved in the EPA trial, what did you think when you suddenly realised that community child health were looking at curriculum review and we're introducing this kind of weird acronym which most people take ages to get used to, but that might be a good starting point for your thought processes?
I just thought it was exciting to see community child health being at the forefront of, I guess, research into curriculum development. And even though I was pretty limited in how much I could be engaged because of being away some of the time this year, I didn't want to miss out on being a participant in that this year. So I guess I was pretty excited and full of hope that it would actually lead to some significant change in the way we do things. Just thoughts about reviewing curricula generally. I mean, it seems to me that the college has always struggled with rewriting curriculum at intervals in time, and that there's a huge amount of work in doing that every time. And looking back now on the EPA trial, it seems that it's a much more flexible kind of curriculum development and perhaps will be easier to renew and update over time. I don't know if that will eventuate or whether that's how it will play out, but it does seem like it's a slightly more flexible curricula and might make it easier for the college into the future.
So were you pessimistic at all initially about, or were you one of those people that like to have change whenever it can be enforced?
No, look, I'm not keen on change because of the amount of extra work. So my heart sank when I thought how much more work this would involve. Right. I have to be honest about that because I thought this is going to be a big investment of time, but I also recognised that this is something that was important. I had a lot of confidence in the process because I'm an insider anyway in the chapter Community Child Health, and I'm aware of some of the challenges that we're facing around curriculum. I guess I know the personalities involved. I know Mick very well, and on a personal level, I trusted where things were going from that point of view as well. So I guess I was pretty positive about it at the outset.
Okay, thank you. Any contrary views? You can be honest. No, from everyone else. Or did everybody feel reasonably enthusiastic and also recognise the need? I mean, we recognised, it was interesting because the whole thing kind of came together. It was serendipitous, wasn't it? Because we were was then the SAC, we were really frustrated with the way the curricula was. We couldn't get the thing right. And then suddenly this opportunity came to develop a new way of training. And it was just amazing, wasn't it? It's been such an enlightenment for all of us, I think. But so we were kind of committed to it before it even happened. Just happened to come at the right time. Okay, any other points that people want to raise about their initial thoughts? If not, we'll move on to the second question. If the person...
I think it's feasible and I think it's palatable as well, which is important. I think it only crystallised in my mind probably 5 minutes into our discussion this morning about really how beneficial it can be and how exciting that is. I think in terms of it being successful though, I think it, with the service-wide education and the rollout, I think it really needs to be, top down but also grassroots, because I think oftentimes, if we receive information from the college, it often is seen as prescriptive, and I don't think people are as keen to get on board with that. So I think we need champions both within the supervisor group as well as the trainee group to help people understand why this is a good move forward.
Thank you. So that's a kind of a positive initial view as well, isn't it, really? Question 2. Looking at it from a general perspective rather than a specific paediatric perspective. What changes would you like to see in the workplace as a result of the curricula change? Does that make sense to you? Yeah? Because it does have, when we've talked about the time commitment that supervisors will need to make. I mean, it's not going to be a waste of time commitment, obviously. It's going to be a very valuable time commitment both to them and to trainees, and we've talked about the advantages to both groups. But what about other issues in the workplace that would come to mind in the context of introduction of EPAs?
I think as a beneficiary of some really good supervision and, acknowledging that supervisors give time and effort to it, it would be really nice to not just get the trainees kind of thanks and gratitude, but recognition from the employees and the employers and the bosses and just, the culture in general that this is a really good thing. Because I think, look, great supervisors put in a lot of effort and time. And apart from us being really grateful and thankful, they probably don't get a whole lot of recognition for the amount of effort and time that they put in to training competent kind of trainees. So I think it would be nice if it could be just more widely recognised.
What effect do you think it might have on employers? You raised them.
I think, again, talking about that whole balance of service delivery, and I think there is, in theory, a recognition that it's one of the roles is training, but I think it almost feels like it's the poor cousin in reality compared to service delivery, given the amount of publicity that service delivery gets and how much talk and emphasis it gets. So it's almost like it's there, it's not as if people are ignoring it, and it's good in theory, everyone agrees about it, but the people who do it well, I think, need to be rewarded for it or recognized for it, I think. So that.
Does anyone think it could have a negative role, attitude or issue with employers, like particularly trainees in difficulty? It's just going to declare people a different level of competencies, and could that be a disadvantage from an employer perspective? I mean, I don't know, it just occurred to me while you were talking there, because it's kind of putting things out a bit, isn't it? I mean, the old tick box thing we didn't like, but at least it kind of covered up. We had a discussion about mentoring and supervision, the difference and the similarities, and of course one of the true roles of a mentor is a confidential advisor. But of course supervisors aren't confidential advisors. Supervisors actually, if an employer asks the supervisor what were the problems with the trainee, there'll be some obligation for them to tell them. Whereas of course I don't believe that that's the role of a mentor at all. A mentor would say, this is, I have a confidential relationship with this person, and none of what I talk with her about is to be discussed with anyone else. So I mean, I just wonder, I don't know, what do other people think? Is it possible that it could be a negative?
Just in terms of the role in recruitment at the moment, there is no overlap between the recruitment process and the assessment process. So when you're recruiting, you don't get any of that advanced trainee feedback because it all goes to the college and it's held confidentially at the college. I think that's one of the issues in terms of performance managing trainees, because you don't always get the information you need, because they can be selective in terms of what is and isn't provided to you. So certainly if the model of the college owning the assessments and the employer owning the performance, there would be no overlap. I actually think it would be better if there was more of an overlap, that actually that fed into the recruitment process and the career planning. But obviously there is a potential for difficulties, and you need safeguards to protect trainees where there have been personality issues and all those other sorts of things, if it's feeding into that system. But I think, as someone who sits on the side of the table looking at fellows, they come to you with the information they choose to provide, and there's a whole wealth of other information out there which does not come into the recruitment process.
So it could be a benefit, couldn't it, as you
I
said?
think it could
Yeah, I
potentially
think
be a
so.
benefit.
And it's also a benefit for a trainee, because we have to apply for, a job every year. Every year, going through the same motion of applying for jobs to go to another new place. Whereas actually, if you're able to provide, your competency level for an employer that looks good, this is someone who in their last employment was saying, look, they're scoring a 5, they're ready to be a consultant, let's have this person over someone else, just because they do badly in their interview because they get stressed and stuff. At least they've got that competency level. What I really think the college should be doing is looking at, you've got a 3-year, especially for CCH training, you've got this 3-year plan. These are the places you should be moving around, rather than every year you're reapplying for a job that you might not get based on an interview.
I think I would wholeheartedly agree with that. And that is everybody's dream. And certainly within Sydney, there is absolutely no reason why logically you would not do that. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, this is how you get your competencies. The issue is that most of those positions are soft funded. There is no guarantee of recurrent funding, and you cannot put them into a 3-year cycle, because who will carry the risk if the funding goes and you have someone with a contract?
Yeah.
And I think until you sort out that side of it, you cannot get those, because that is where this should go. There should be a 3-year training program. These are the positions which will give you the access to the EPAs. Clearly, you need to meet those requirements. But until you've got secure funding for these positions and contracts that go across LHDs, you can't do that. But that's ideally where this should go. EPAs set the standard, and we design training programs, workplace training programs around those standards. That's the ideal.
So, as I understand it, the college is currently preparing its statement and getting its thoughts in order about where it's going to allocate the 900 SDP positions. I think there's potentially a very strong argument, if community child health has got its house in order, that we could have or maintain our share of the SDP positions for the next X number of years, which might give us some certainty around setting up a 3-year program for trainees.
Yeah, we talked about program development a bit this morning, didn't we? We talked about the value, because it's not like that in New Zealand, is it, Paul? I mean, there's a commitment to people who get into training until they...
Yes and no. I mean, I'm a simple neurologist, and so...
You mean simply a neurologist?
Yeah. Also. Until very recently, our trainees have had to apply for jobs on an annual basis, and there's been a lot of backroom and side room discussion amongst the neurologists who either are on the SAC or influence the SAC as to who's going to take who and where they're going to go and how everything's going to shuffle around the country. This year, for the first time, most of those trainees have been given certainty already about where they will be, and the SAC, which is now part of the Australian group, is trying to push for each trainee to have a 3-year plan. But the health authorities and the health funders are still not bought into that, and so what we then had to do this year is talk to our management and say, okay, these are the guys that you have to appoint to these registrar posts when the jobs that you haven't even advertised yet come up. Okay? And so there's been a lot of shadow boxing, and it's going to go like that for many years yet.
That's what we should be aiming towards, isn't it? Getting
Shadow
some
boxing.
kind of... Yeah. Okay. The last question. I guess this is one of the ones that would be interesting from the 3 of us here who are on the curriculum, or 4 actually now, curriculum advisory group, what can we learn that we can take to the curriculum advisory group? What are the main points, do you think, that have come out of this pilot? Murray?
I think Mick nearly got a jump on me there, but I mean, it's about the evidence really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we, you know, it's probably, until that's analysed maybe, the feedback and the, you know, online surveys that we've all done or need to do, then, you know, once that's all actually looked at, that will provide, hopefully, a lot of weight that, you know, this group can then give as evidence for the rest of the college and the other training committees to say, well, look, the evidence is this works, and, you know, we had the theoretical framework for why it should work, and now we've got the evidence that it does work from the pilot, which was the reason it was set up in the first place. So, I mean, it's probably a little bit too early first. I think this group obviously is quite positive in the kind of oral feedback we've given, but we need the anonymous feedback as well from people that aren't here today.
Yeah. And that'll be processed in due course as well, yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Thanks, Annika.
I think it's an opportunity to look at how you can change the curriculum in a look at different ways of doing this, and the EPA is obviously one of the ways, but there may be others that could be looked at which have not been looked at in this pilot, and that could be developed for the other services, because this is really good for community child health, but I don't know whether it is going to be the same for, say, neonatology or neurology or other aspects of EPA development. May take a while.
And does it need some kind, and we've talked about this, I know, in the curriculum advisory group, are we looking for champions of EPAs across various sectors in the college? I mean, is that, because that's kind of what's happened here. We've had the skills and the enthusiasm to do it. I mean, is that going to be an important issue, do you think, for the rest of the college, for the rest of the training programs? And what's going to happen if we can't identify champions in various areas, various training areas? Will that mean those training areas won't be able to consider actively the development of EPAs? Any comments on that? Mick?
Critical mass of champions. You don't necessarily need, to wait until you've got, 100 champions before you start. The more we actually expand, the more others may get on board, I think.
So the curriculum advisory group itself could be, because that's probably how it's been set up in a way, isn't it? For those people on it to take this into their groups and advocate for it. So maybe some kind of advocacy plan would be a useful one.
I think that we should try and sell the idea of EPAs as a simplification of what's already there, on the background of the fact that the curriculum is going to be renewed. There are no choices. And this is actually going to make it simpler because, hey guys, we're giving you a framework to insert your current thinking into, and if you need to change your thinking a little bit to fit it in, that might give you an opportunity for modernisation.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
Look, I think you're going to have to look at whether it can be implemented across all domains of paediatrics and in the different subspecialties. Yeah. Like neonates, like where do you put EPAs into neonates? But I think, coming on the point, I think you need to integrate, we need the docs and the case-based discussions all into EPAs as entrusted things. So your docs for intubation and neonates is actually incorporated into this, rather than actually making them each separate.
Yeah, that's
just
right.
Lump it all into one. It sounds better than doing, all these different sections.
Yeah, that was an important principle when we were developing these EPAs, to keep their number down to a specific limited number, because they could have gone like that. As it turned out, they ended up like that. Okay, thank you.